Welcome to the Simplify Your Life podcast. It's Coach Simona, and I'm glad you decided to tune in. Hey everyone! In today's podcast episode, we're going to talk about how to deal with a passive-aggressive person. And I'm going to share with you 6 signs of passive-aggressive behavior so that you can recognize it, become aware of it, and know how to handle it better. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Simona, certified life coach and author of the book 111 Ways to Simplify Your Life. I make weekly podcast episodes on personal development, so if that's something that you're interested in, make sure to subscribe. Alright, today's topic is an interesting one, and probably a bit controversial. So I want to make a quick disclaimer. Since you're the one who's going to interact with a passive-aggressive person, you best know your situation and the state of your relationship. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. I'm just going to share with you what has worked for me, and hopefully you can take some bits and pieces and apply them to your life if they resonate with you. With that said, let's first answer the question, why are people passive-aggressive? What exactly drives their passive-aggressive behavior? To answer this question, we're going to need to understand exactly where they're coming from. All people who engage in passive-aggressive behavior want to avoid conflict for one reason or another. Here are several of the possible reasons for acting in a passive-aggressive way. The first one is fear of a negative reaction. Passive-aggressive behavior often stems from trauma. If one of our parents or primary caretakers was violent, aggressive, and made us feel unsafe to voice our opinion, we may have resorted to passive-aggressive behavior as a coping mechanism to avoid potential punishment. If someone is acting in a passive-aggressive way, they may be doing it unconsciously and reinforcing the behavior that kept them out of trouble growing up. The second reason is low self-esteem. When we don't see ourselves as worthy, we tend to sabotage our relationships by choosing a passive-aggressive route. After all, if we fail, we're just going to reinforce our negative belief that we're not good enough. The problem is that passive-aggressive people often seem malicious when they're simply just trying to protect themselves from getting hurt. By disappointing others, they keep themselves at a distance and therefore safe. The third reason is fear of looking bad in other people's eyes. Sometimes passive aggression happens when we get tired of people pleasing. We may want to voice our negative emotions and frustrations, but feel like we won't seem nice in their eyes anymore. So we resort to covert ways to express our anger. By using passive aggression, we can pretend to be innocent without revealing our true intentions. The fourth reason is trying to maintain control over the situation. This is an interesting one. Sometimes passive-aggressive behavior can give you a win over the other person in terms of agitating, frustrating, or disappointing them to the point of them giving up on trying to fight back. It can be subtle, to the point of not realizing why the other person is so vague. But the truth is that they're simply trying to manipulate you to get what they want. It could be a power move, and one that you should be mindful of, especially when dealing with people at work. And the last reason for being passive-aggressive is trying to avoid taking responsibility. When we're behaving in a passive-aggressive way, we often play the victim role. We're trying to escape responsibility by pinning all our hopes and dreams on the other person. We may even prefer to purposefully fail and set low expectations so they don't count on us in the future. Those were some of the most common reasons for being a passive-aggressive person. Let me know in the comments below if there is something else that you would like to add to this list. I would love to hear your thoughts. Now, before we get into my 5 in-depth tips on how to deal with a passive-aggressive person, let's first take a look at the 6 signs of passive-aggressive behavior. The first sign of passive-aggressive behavior is the silent treatment. When someone is stonewalling you and refusing to speak, they're trying to exercise power over you. Instead of bluntly saying that they're angry with you, they prefer to punish you by withholding affection. We'll talk more about how to handle this type of behavior later on in this episode. But for now, let's say that there is a subtle difference between giving someone the silent treatment and asking for some space. The first one is toxic, and the second one is constructive and healthy. For example, the silent treatment could look like pretending that everything's fine, but refusing to talk to the other person. looking the other way when they're trying to interact with you, or pretending that they don't exist. When someone uses this type of passive-aggressive tactic, they're trying to get under your skin and show you that you've done something wrong. The problem is that without healthy communication, this won't resolve the conflict long term. Sure, they may feel like they've won temporarily, but the truth is that it only builds further resentment between you two. On the contrary, asking for space means being vocal about your needs. Needing to spend some time alone can be communicated in a healthy and constructive way. While the silent treatment puts even more barriers, asking for space is actually a fantastic way to have a pause and come back refreshed and ready to engage in a social interaction again. The second sign of passive-aggressive behavior is using criticism and masking it with humor. Examples of this passive-aggressive behavior is saying something mean and then masking it with the phrase, "I was just kidding." Or engaging in gossip, teasing, criticizing someone repeatedly, and using self-deprecating humor that later on turns into full-on performance at the expense of the other person, without them even realizing. Another sign of passive-aggressive behavior is saying or doing something and pretending that it didn't happen, also known as gaslighting. This is an especially painful one if you're on the receiving side. If you've ever been gaslighted before, you know how frustrating it can be to try to defend yourself when the other person pretends that you're being crazy or making things up. When using this passive-aggressive technique, the other person may be trying to exercise control, avoid taking responsibility, or simply try to escape the shame that they feel inside. If they feel fundamentally flawed, and they think that you've seen them in this light, that may cause a lot of shame. And the reaction is to lie, deny, and gaslight to protect their fragile sense of self, unfortunately at the expense of the relationship. The fourth sign of passive-aggressive behavior is being stubborn, inefficient, or pretending to agree with the other person just so they could leave you alone. This type of passive-aggressive behavior is characterized by extreme stubbornness, to the point of refusing to acknowledge the other person's point of view. People often resort to this behavior as a distorted way of trying to set healthy boundaries. If they are not capable of coming up with an assertive way to state their position, they may lie and pretend they're going to do exactly what you agreed on just so they could avoid potential conflict. But in the end, they will still do what they wanted to do all along, without really taking your opinion into consideration. Another sign of passive-aggressive behavior is deflection. When you deflect, you try to shift responsibility onto the other person, or project your insecurities onto them. This is an extremely effective way of not only infuriating the other person and feeling like you've won the argument by getting them to blow up, but also a dysfunctional way of feeling like a victim and not having to deal with your own negative emotions and shortcomings. Sometimes deflection might also look like exaggerated or imagined health issues, being dependent on the other person, purposefully failing, self-harming, and so on. Sign number 6 when it comes to passive-aggressive behavior is backhanded compliments. Have you ever stumbled upon YouTube comments that seem like compliments, but they're actually like insults disguised as compliments? That's what backhanded compliments mean. By giving someone a backhanded compliment, you're actually trying to insult them, but pretend that you're innocent at the same time. Maybe you're angry with them or envious of them, so you try to put them down by pretending to like them, so they can't get mad at you. Or if they do, they're the bad guy, and you get out of the situation squeaky clean. Okay, now that we know what the 6 signs of passive-aggressive behavior are, let's get to the solutions. Here are 5 tips on how to deal with a passive-aggressive person. 1. See where they're coming from. We talked about this in the beginning of this episode. Try to put yourself in their shoes. What is going on with them? Do they usually act like this, or is that something that you're noticing for the first time? And what is the reason behind it? Be as objective as possible. Pay attention to their words, their tone of voice, their body language. Are they trying to express their frustration but don't know how to do it? Or is that a power move to get you to do what they want? Once you're aware of their intentions, or at least you have a bit better understanding of where they're coming from, the second step is to not take it personally. I know it can be frustrating, even infuriating at times, especially if you're a very direct and honest person. But this is not your problem. If someone doesn't know how to tell you what they want or express their frustration in a healthy way, that's on them. You can't really fix them or change their reaction and stop them from being passive-aggressive. All you can do is choose how to react in this situation. So how can you do that? Well, the next step would be particularly helpful, and that is to ask yourself, what do I want to achieve in the end? When there is a passive-aggressive interaction going on, it's clear that both sides want different things. So it's time to put the focus back on yourself and get clear on what you want to achieve in the end. What do you want to get out of this situation? Do you want to fight? Do you want to prove a point? De-escalate the conflict? Or not engage in childish mind games and mind your own business? Stop thinking about the other person for a second. What do you want? If you want to be more assertive, you can call them out on their passive-aggressive behavior. The key here is not to be too aggressive or rude, because that would make them even more passive-aggressive. The more you push, the more they will pull, and the dynamic will get even more toxic if one of you doesn't stop. The second option is to ignore their behavior and stop feeding their passive-aggressiveness. You can do that by disengaging, not falling for their dramatic or victimized behavior, and letting them play out their automatic behavior until they realize that they need to change their approach if they want to have a healthy relationship with you. The fourth tip I have for you on how to deal with a passive-aggressive person is to be honest with yourself about your own behavior. That may be a tough pill to swallow, but sometimes you may be a big part of the problem. And while you shouldn't take responsibility for someone else's behavior, it is important to be aware of your own way of handling conflict. Journal using the following questions to get a better understanding of yourself. 1. How do I handle my emotions? 2. Do I need to lash out on people when I'm angry? 3. Is there a possibility that I might be too aggressive when I communicate with this passive-aggressive person? 4. What if I try to be more polite while still staying assertive next time I interact with them? 5. In what ways am I also being passive-aggressive? The last question is a deep one because it has to do with getting to know your shadow self. If you're interested in becoming more aware of your self-sabotaging behaviors and learning how to set healthy boundaries with others, check out the Self-Love Toolkit. It's my step-by-step framework that will help you learn how to love yourself unconditionally, which in turn will help you improve all other areas of your life, including your relationships. If you want to learn more, click the first link in the description box below or simply visit www.theselflovetoolkit.com. My next tip on how to deal with passive-aggressive people is to focus on yourself. When you're having a conversation with someone who's passive-aggressive, you may lose yourself in an attempt to figure out what they want, where they're coming from, and why they behave the way that they do. So I want you to try something different instead. Pay attention to your inner monologue when you feel triggered. What thoughts are going through your head? How do you feel? What stories are you telling yourself that you need to let go of? By focusing on yourself, you will be able to handle any passive-aggressive situation in a more constructive way. Instead of doing something to please them or get them to do something, you will know how you feel at that very moment and act accordingly. If you're not sure how to focus on yourself, I recommend listening to episode 115 next. I will leave a link below. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this episode helpful, please like it. And subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss out on my weekly podcast episodes. I'm sending you all my love, and I'll talk to you in the next one.